So since the emergence of research from people like John Anthony West, Robert Schoch, Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, and several others, we also see the emergence of sentiments in regards to mainstream academics or mainstream archaeologists wanting to, pun intended, bury the truth. But how legitimate are these sentiments? Are archaeologists going to university and then postgraduate school and then entering into this secret occult of ancient information that they know will set humanity free, and then they purposely suppress that information? Well, no, of course not. But that's also not to say that it doesn't happen. It does, just not in the way that you think it would. For instance, the young archaeologists who have been hired and paid next to nothing to work on these dig sites in places like Saqqara, Egypt, these people are not uncovering incredible finds to then suppress them from the public. If this was happening, you'd likely see the net worth of some of these archaeologists skyrocketing from things like back alley payments and so on. So what is happening when Graham Hancock talks about mainstream archaeologists not wanting to accept new ideas, and what does this mean, and do these claims hold any merit? Well, let's start from Graham Hancock's point of view. So in 1995, he releases his first widely acclaimed novel, Fingerprints of the Gods, where he uses what can be loosely described as negative evidence to point towards gaps in the early human story. In these gaps, Hancock would theorize about a potential lost civilization that must have existed around approximately 9,600 to 10,500 BC, as I understand it. Now, around 1995, only a few other figures had thrown out any similar estimations. This includes John Anthony West and Robert Schoch in regards to their geological work on the Sphinx. Now, starting in 1995, all three of these polarizing figures, West, Schoch, and Hancock, received intense backlash from the archaeological and scientific community as a whole for their claims of a lost or forgotten civilization. But just around that same time, news was beginning to spread of a massive ancient megalithic site known as Göbekli Tepe. And carbon dating work on the site indicates that it was built as far back as 10,000 BC. This is older than Graham Hancock's youngest date of his proposed lost civilization. And this was the first piece of irrefutable, solid evidence lending support to the proposition of a lost Ice Age civilization. And over the last almost 30 years, more and more evidence, such as the Younger Dryas climate catastrophe, has begun to bolster the positions and opinions of researchers like Graham Hancock. All the while, he has been continually scrutinized by more conservative academics. Now, one thing to point out is that on a few occasions, Hancock has even debated with a few different scientists within their own field of study, and the end result of all of these debates was that the academic had scrutinized Hancock beyond their ability to defend. Meaning that when it came down to it, the academics were not able to defend their own counter positions against Hancock. And finally, if you go to Graham Hancock's Wikipedia page, these academics explicitly call him a pseudoscientist, and they've locked down the accessibility to that page to where it cannot be edited. Now, I'm sure that in Graham Hancock's mind, as well as many, many others, this validates and solidifies all of the feelings that academia is a dogmatic, hierarchical good boys club, where if you're not a part of the club, you don't get to have an opinion. And admittedly, this can be true. I've had run-ins with people who have graduated with a degree in archaeology who have used their supposed position of authority to try to steamroll me in debates surrounding the many mysteries of ancient Egypt. And they always say, oh, well, I'm an archaeologist, I have a degree in archaeology, so I know better. And they use this facade of a position of authority constantly. I see it all the time. Well, I studied cultural anthropology in university, and still the vast majority of everything that I know in regards to ancient cultures came much later and almost entirely by my own volition. And it's also been clear to me that in many of these debates, the specific archaeologist in question is more concerned about their own prestige and perceived position of authority, rather than being genuinely curious about our ancient past and being open to a rational, calm, productive discussion. And this becomes incredibly obvious when they cite sources for their argument that do not even directly address the topic at hand, or they are actually guilty of being naive and reading a false headline rather than doing their own research and so on. So, granted, to a much lesser degree, I have had run-ins with the same kind of crowd that Graham Hancock has. But are these naysayers the same flock of people getting their hands dirty working on archaeological sites in ancient Egypt? Probably not. While it is true that shifting a paradigm within academia is akin to moving a mountain, as academics have staked their entire lives and careers on specific ideas and will do anything to defend those ideas, just as many academics spend their entire career in hopes to make a discovery that will completely reshape the way we see the human story. So while academics is a slow process, scientists are constantly correcting old ideas and concepts that evolve our understanding of our world. And furthermore, I won't get into specific names, sites, or situations, but a more explicit example of moral corruption in archaeology are the organizations over the heads of your hard-working archaeologists. There are places in the world where the government itself carries out secret archaeological digs to sell artifacts on the black market. Now, are these artifacts evidence pertaining to an ancient lost civilization that need to be hidden from the general public? Or is it more likely that many faceless, nameless billionaires would be willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money to own several thousand-year-old artifacts that can't be found anywhere else in the world? It's most likely the latter. So when Graham Hancock speaks about the mainstream academia not wanting to accept certain new or fringe ideas, you just have to remember that archaeology is just like any other field, and it is filled with an extremely diverse cast of characters who are just as flawed and exceptional as any other field, with personal motivations that sometimes meld with the profession and sometimes result in suspicious outcomes. Now that's very vague, but I hope that you understand what I'm saying. Everything comes down to individuality, and clumping people into groups or labeling them is wrong whether you're a skeptic or an academic. So is the scientific community or the organizations surrounding specific scientific communities hiding ancient history from us and hiding secrets from us? Yes and no. And where it is yes, it's probably not happening in the way that you think. I've never made a discussion video like this, so please let me know if this is something you would like to see more of in the future. And please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to learn more about ancient lost civilizations, ancient mysteries, and lost technology. I'm Luke Caverns, and I'll catch you all next time.